All right, so what we're going to do, we're each going to have 3 full turns, and then we'll call that the end of the debate. So going to the points that you made, I have a few places I want to start. The last thing I tried to say was actually a question to you. I won't pass it, but if you could answer this in your next at what point is it wrong for me to express myself? Is it okay for me? Hang on, can you still hear me? It's saying now a connection issue. Can you hear me still? Everything I have. Can you hear me? Well, okay, I'll just keep going. I don't know what's going on with the connection, but we'll keep going. My question would be essentially, why is it wrong for me to rape someone? And so what's the point where my expression is limited, if not harming other people? And if indeed it is harming other people, if violent pornography leads to harm for other people, then violent pornography should be banned. You said we're going to discard the study I put out, which is a nice try, but actually at the very beginning of the study, it said that both alcohol and violent pornography independently causes violence or can be linked to violence, and together really linked to violence. And that's not the only study that's out there. There's a lot of studies that talk about this. You look at the report to the Attorney General, it says clinical, and this is from the Harvard module that I posted, clinical and experimental research has focused particularly on sexual violent material, and the conclusion have been virtually anonymous in both clinical and experimental settings. Exposure to sexually violent material has indicated an increase in likelihood of aggression, that people who are viewing violence, whether it's created, whether it's just artistic, if someone is viewing this type of violence, they are more likely to perpetuate this violence. And this is brought home even farther when you look at many case examples that I posted, the Joanne Smith link. The crimes that they commit, the rapes they commit, actually match the violent pornography that they recently viewed. She said, most disturbingly, in all the cases mentioned, there is an undeniable similarity between the videos viewed by the offender and their crimes. They seem to have progressed from viewing unpleasant material that fed their fantasies to treating it as some kind of rehearsal for the murder they went to commit. Things like strangling people, things like trying to break into someone's house while they're at home. That's the titles of the videos that they were watching. There is a clear link. You can't discard that one study, and I'll pass the mic now.
Okay, to answer your question, why is it wrong? What point is it limited to not harming other people? And there's a third part to that, but let me go ahead and answer the first part. Rape is wrong because it's not consensual, but we're not talking about an actual rape. We're talking about depiction of force, an exhibition of force under the definition of the Oxford Dictionary. Violence is an exhibition of force, and pornography would be a fantasy. So it's a fantasy, and it's through a voluntary contract. So the performer has voluntarily entered into this contract, and maybe the performer, it would be a fantasy that they're fulfilling. So there is no harm under your principle. And you say it leads to, but this is sort of an appeal to emotions, becoming wishful thinking at this point, because I'm not seeing evidence. And I think for you to say that your study is valid, you would have to give me you would have to tell me, because I have read your study, you'd have to tell me what they did in the study, because my understanding is the study includes alcohol, that would make it the alcohol not a factor in the study. And I have an argument. My other argument for your study is that the way that they're measuring brain chemistry doesn't mean that it's someone's more likely to be raped. It just means that they get off on that. But before that would, but my first point is that I don't think it's a valid study. Your Harvard study, I couldn't read that, and you told me before the debate in the notes that will stay up that you weren't including that study. So my question to you, before I pass it back, is someone who's viewing pornography, what are they not doing? What aren't they doing?
What in the moment of viewing the pornography, I suppose they're not doing a lot of stuff. I know what you're wanting me to say is they're not actually raping someone, they're not actually violently being aggressive towards. No dispute there. The whole point is not that they're doing it in that moment. The point is that that causes them to do it more. Do you want me to pass it back for one more minute for you to fill out that 3 minutes? Okay. I'm going to go on and I'm going to talk about the study once again. If you look at the study, if you look at that study, there we go. I just jumped again from the University of Washington again. The bulk of that study is talking about alcohol and violent pornography together, but it's very clear right from the outset that there are independent reasons why both violent pornography and alcohol in this case lead to violence. The Harvard study that I put that's referencing let's see, Attorney General Commission on Pornography. That was not one of the EBSCO links. The Harvard study was there. I don't know if you saw there were multiple pages to that Harvard study because it was going through their module on pornography, but that study was one that you did have access to, not one that was EBSCO and you had to have an account to get to. And so the Commission on Pornography makes it very clear that there's a link here. In Europe, there's many examples. I read the one from Joanne Smith. I have 4 cases here. I just don't have time to read them all, but it's in that article from the Telegraph that gives 4 examples of people who are raped and killed in these cases, and there's a massive connection to violent pornography of the person who perpetuated the crime, and the crimes actually look like the last thing they were watching. It actually emulates the last thing that they were taking part of. You referenced studies earlier about 1995 to 2010 and how the rate of porn has increased while the rate of rape has decreased. And I'm actually not going to argue that those rates have changed. Those are just basic factual reportings of to do with violent pornography. And it just dropped you again, but now I'm back.
Okay, can you hear me speak? Can you put your thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry you're still having some technical problems. You may already know this, but if you hit refresh, that helps resolve that. Okay, there were 2 Harvard studies that you put up. There was one that I could read. I'm not really sure where you're getting at with that. I did see your article from the Telegraph, and this is what I think you're using is a sort of red herring that's an appeal to emotions. And like I said, then it turns into wishful thinking. So let me go ahead and quote from your article from the Telegraph. It says, and because it says, his stepfather told the Justice Liaison Service he had discovered Reynolds viewing images of women being strangled. He was advised to go tell the police, but the force failed to act on his report. So this parent is not only allowing his 16-year-old son, his 16-year-old stepson, to view these pornographic images because he's a minor who's responsible for it. He did nothing to block him from these images. He didn't take his computer away. He was told to call the police. He didn't do it. So this is the same thing as saying that Freddie or Marilyn Manson caused the school shooting or something. I mean, this is bad parenting, and people, they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. And I have given statistics that you think that people, they were viewing all these images, that there would be all these rapes and stuff. And there just isn't. I mean, the numbers are lower. And you didn't answer my question. What I was getting at, what they aren't doing is if it's consensual or not, they're not having sex with a partner. Okay, and this goes back to the brain chemistry of it, because because I think to really get at what the problem with pornography is. I mean, I don't have a problem. I'm not saying that pornography should be banned. I'm not taking your side, but the problem with pornography is that it's a drug. And the people who are concerned with pornography, they need to change the stigma of it. They don't need to, we don't need to ban it. We need to change the stigma of it. So what I'm getting at is that that you're not giving a good reason. There isn't a good outcome. You're not giving. The cause doesn't lead to a valid conclusion here, because people, they're not having, these people who are viewing pornography or whatever it is, they're not having sex with a partner, consensual or not. So it's actually kind of a form of birth control or population control, or however you want to put it, because they're just not having sex with a partner. But I mean, it could be in a good way. It could be a way that they're fulfilling their fantasy. Of course, I haven't heard how it's voluntary. You haven't contested how it's voluntary. I don't know. Maybe we'll hear some more here. I'm sorry, having some problems, but yeah, I'm out of time.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I think it's my computer, I guess, that's having problems. In comment on your 1995 to 2010 study, that has little bearing here. Essentially, there's two things you have to keep in mind. There are a lot of things that were implemented in 1995 in terms of increased police forces, especially in the US, which is what your study was talking about there, that are the reason why the crime decreased. And when you look at pornography, in 1995, violent pornography was nothing like it's like today. Even in 2010, violent pornography was very. So you look at violent pornography today, you can't dismiss the Telegraph article just by saying it's appealing to emotion. You looked at one of the 5 examples there, and actually in that example, you seem to be siding with me that person not calling the police and not stopping their child from watching that violent pornography was being a bad parent. If violent pornography is not a problem, why are they being a bad parent? Why is it a problem? You seem to be agreeing that essentially the viewing of that violent pornography led him to do something that was problematic. That was the only kid in those examples. The other ones were adults. You didn't actually respond to my response on the alcohol study, that it does specifically say at the beginning they independently cause these problems. The Harvard study, again, you have to go to the bottom and you have to click the different pages on that module in order to see the quote from the General Commission. I don't think that porn has increased and crime has decreased actually gives any bearing. We could essentially say nothing's a problem then, because, you know, as long as crime's decreasing, nothing's really causing it, any of the crimes today. That's nonsense. Violent porn could still be accounting for many of the crimes that do take place. Just because it's decreasing doesn't mean that it's gone away. I'm not saying that violent porn is going to be the #1 reason why sexual assaults happen, but that it is a reason nonetheless, according to all the evidence. And if violent pornography results in harm to individuals, according to Mills, that should be banned. That should be illegal. We should not allow people to indulge themselves for the sake of pleasures and things that are going to result in harm to other people. I'm not even contending that the people who are in the pornographic material are consensual. I'm not saying that that anybody's forcing them. I'm not saying that the actual viewing of the pornographic material is the problem, although I think it is. I'm saying the results of viewing it are the problem. This isn't about if 2 adults are agreeing to film something. This is about those who watch it and what they do afterwards. And very clearly, according to the studies, according to the evidence, it's not a red herring. They are being more violent according to the studies that we have. You can't just quote a big number. Rapes go down, pornography goes up, not an issue, when there's specific case studies, specific examples, specific experiments that have shown that is the case. So this is my last turn, though, so you'll get 3 minutes and then we'll be done here.
Okay, well, you just said yourself that more people are viewing violent pornography than ever, but you still somehow they think that there's some correlation that it's causing more rapes, but the number is going down. So I mean, there's just no evidence. I mean, rape is at its lowest point ever, and of course we're talking about a fantasy. We're talking about an exhibition of force. It could be an art like within the Mapplethorpe exhibition that I shared, which that did include images of sadomasochism. It was very controversial, and that's where a lot of these rules come from. So that exhibition, Robert Mapplethorpe's exhibition, that we couldn't show that exhibition now. And since that exhibition also showed images of people who are homosexuals, maybe then just, you know, maybe people have the same sexual freedom. And these performers, they wouldn't have if it were underground, they wouldn't have the same rights. They couldn't make a complaint if it actually was forceful. So I think to preserve liberty, to preserve freedom of expression. Well, let me say this. You should vote calm, but let me go ahead and get to your other points. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that what I'm saying is that this parent knew that this child had a problem, and I'm not saying that it was caused by the porn. I'm not saying it was the cause. I'm just saying that they knew they had a problem. They didn't do anything about it. So they were being irresponsible, and they not only want the government, they want somebody to step in and do something about it. It's just they need to do it themselves. They could have blocked them from watching the pornography. They could have told the police if they really believe that. So no, you're just not answering the question. You didn't tell me what the variable difference is, how alcohol isn't included in the variable difference. I did read the study. You don't tell me how the variable different, how it differs, because my understanding is that that includes alcohol. So I don't think it's a good study. So yeah, I'm not hearing a lot of good evidence. I think it's pretty much crystal clear that it's pretty much crystal clear here that if viewing these these depictions of violence, these fantasies of violence, cause people to actually do this, that the numbers would be up, because you said yourself that more people are able to watch it than ever, but the number is going down. I think you credited the police as making the number go down, but people are still going to do it if the police are going to catch them or not. I mean, they have, if they're watching this pornography, they have all the time in the world to figure out how to do that. I mean, I would never watch this stuff, but I think to preserve liberty and freedom of expression, vote con. I think the evidence is very clearly on my side, and I'm sorry he had some technical problems. Thanks for watching the debate. Have a good day.
All right. Thanks for debating.